Okay, where was I?
The game opens in... I don't even know where we are.
Seriously, you first show up in a digital fortress in their lobby. I don't even remember what the region is called. Is it just terminal area? Is that it?
They refer constantly to the Yamato server, where most of the gameplay takes place, but where is this place? How does it relate to the realm? What is the point of this location? These are never really explained.
Or if there are, they're in side contents I never actually found. You get that a lot with this game, as you don't really know what the hell you're doing, where to go, or why. What you are given is very basic, and ultimately you're on your own to not only figure it out without a contextual framework, but where such is in the overworlds you're supplied.
Now, I'm not asking that the game hold your hand and have it walk you through it itself, but I would have at least appreciated a fucking map or recognizable landmarks that help with distinguishing the terrain, as much of it is hidden with absolutely no new nor explorative inclination for discovering many of the game's details. For example, several stretches of the game have it be essential that you use gameplay elements that are in fact counterintuitive and discourage through your normal progression. Two of these being the discovery that much of your environment is destructible, and can be smashed up with a charge attack. This charge attack is otherwise useless in actual battle scenarios, as even at full charge, it only does the same amount of damage your normal attacks deal, so charging up wastes gameplay time. You could have been repeatedly hitting the attack key. But the thing about the destructible environments is it's not just rocks and shrubbery. There are also in fact destructible walls that can reveal hidden passages, some of which are mandatory for level completion or progression, and yet you are not clued into their existence. The second is ranged attacks and weapons.
Now this ties into my earlier comment about magic attacks. They, and the ranged weapon ability known as Shot, are effectively worthless outside of specific circumstances where you are required to use them.
This is because aiming the attacks are a literal nightmare. Even the slightest movement of the joystick can throw off the aim of a shot weapon and make you miss the attack unless it is at point-blank range.
And if you're just shooting them point-blank normally, why not equip a melee weapon?
Magic attacks are both better and worse, in that they have a homing feature, but such is automatic and are often deflected to other enemies than the one you intended the shot to go to if they are in range of the attack. As you advance your abilities and magic skill, the normal elemental attack produces multiple castings at once, but this causes them to all fly about even more wildly, thus missing not only the primary target, but all of the subsequent ones. If they all do manage to hit, the attacks do not stack, only the first registering the hit with the others being wasted.
Worse, point for point in the stat and the ability score, the magic attacks do a fraction of the damage physical and shot attacks do, both of which having damage tied to the attack stat, which is boosted on top of your level ups depending on the weapon you equip. Magic, of course, being tied to your wisdom score. However, the weapons you can equip and the strength and variety of your spells are limited by an ability point system, which is tied to both your leveling and how much you use that skill.
Meaning you need to spam and use an ability constantly to level it up, which takes literally forever. And at times it's limited at how much it can progress by the level of your character and how many magic points you have. Most magic skills having a large enough mana cost that you can only cast them a few times.
And each weapon type and each magic type have their own ability point scores, split between blunt, slash, stab, bash, shot, crush, blast, heal, and force. The force being spells that inflict status effects. They're actually kind of useful, second only to healing spells, as the one that debuffs the power of enemies makes them massively easier to kill, but it's a pain to level up the skill.
And because the loot drop in the game is completely random, if you don't level all of the weapon types, you may find yourself with a weapon that can severely help you, but don't have the score to equip it at all. You're also not informed if it's a single-wield or dual-wield weapon, and trust me, you only want to use the dual-wield ones, as they increase the width and radius by which your weapons sweep and impact enemies.
Each Digimon also has its own specialty, supposedly, since you can train all of them. It's usually the starting weapon type of that specific Digimon, but it's also reflected in each Digimon's signature weapon, a special 2500 ability point weapon that can only be equipped and used by that specific Digimon.
But to also segue into that, the acquisition of said weapons is ridiculous to the point of not worth the bother.
Why are they even wielding weapons in the first place? There are several Digimon that have weapons, sure, but a lot of them don't need to. None of the rookies do, and they just look damn awkward wielding them like they're shown to.
Hell, you know what Doraemon's weapon on the cover reminds me of?
And I hate Samurai's Mega Mode. Not that this was to blame back then, considering Samurai didn't exist yet, but still.
See, the only way anyone has found to acquire them which works is to beat every dungeon in the game in one sitting, without logging off, quitting, or turning off the game console. You then go to the first region in the game, to this odd outcropping where a ridiculously strong Numemon then spawns. Beat it, and it drops the signature weapon of that Digimon, but only if you played with them through the entire session.
This is come to be known by the game's players as the Nume boss rush. It takes between 8 and 16 hours to clear if you can do it all in one sitting, and is largely dependent on your familiarity with all the game's dungeons and how fast you can kill the enemies you encounter.
Meaning you usually need to come back and beat all the bosses again after you complete the game the first time on that specific difficulty.
And when I went and did this, because of other time commitments such as, my day job, general hygiene, house and equipment upkeep, work on other videos, and sleep, my PS2 was on for 2 days straight before I was able to complete the boss rush. In the 15 years I have had the console, I have never had the need to put that much strain on it for such a long period, nor do I ever care to do so again due to the care I treat my possessions with.
Though I should note that the user Terry the Designated, one of the foremost people knowledgeable about this game, has somehow got doing this boss rush down to an art form to an insane degree, able to conquer it in under 3 hours. I watched his entire Let's Play run from years ago, and I am still baffled he was able to do it in that time. He can do in 6 to 10 minutes what takes me at minimum a fucking half hour.
And then again, that dude for some reason took the time to level his Gallantmon up to level 999. In a way, I respect that. In others, I'm irked because your stats aren't even maxed out if you make it all the way up to that level. I can't even imagine how long that took him, or why he would ever bother.
Honestly though, getting the weapon is not worth it. On top of the Nume boss rush only working on hard difficulty or higher,
once again, this is not how you do difficulty settings.
There's the series of weapons that require 2800 to 2900 ability points to equip, and for the most part their stat gains are far superior.
I've also been told that the item trader side quest on very hard mode can allow for an easier spawning of the signature weapons, but when I tried after unlocking that difficulty mode, I wasn't able to get any to drop.
These superior weapons, while also common drops on very hard mode, are easier to acquire on lower difficulties thanks to the jump shock run by Metal Edamon, which only opens after giving him a certain amount of currency, which is in and of itself a ludicrous amount as you get at most a few hundred if you're not selling your drops, which you should be. And he eventually gives you the most basic version of this best gear in the game by maxing out your donations.
Better, he occasionally has in stock variants of said weapons, which have customization slots open to them, which you can equip special abilities, such as an increase in critical damage, elemental attacks, or an effect that restores HP or MP. This is important to die back to the game not explaining what to do, as certain regions of the game require you to do elemental damage to environmental obstacles in order to progress through them. And if the gear does not have a customization equipped slot, and you do not possess that type of elemental attack, you are screwed, and then need to find one that does.
But you are not able to freely change equipment either. You need to go to the Digivolve lab to switch what weapons you equip, as you are limited to only be able to switch between 3 in the field, meaning you'll lose a lot of time if you don't know about that in advance.
Not helped by the fucking loading screen. This is seriously one of the worst and longest lasting loading screens I have ever seen.
I'm not kidding when I say I've spent 5 to 10 minutes waiting. Just waiting for the loading screen to pass and load the game's regions.
It's fucking excessive. And mind you, during this period, the games I played the most of were Final Fantasy X and X-2, Zone of the Enders the Second Runner, the Onimusha trilogy, and the Core.Hack games. Entries that had far larger and more intricate overworlds you could explore, which lacked this kind of load screen nonsense entirely, or at most took 8 to 10 seconds.
But you want to go to an overworld region? Load screen. A different field in that region? Load screen. A dungeon and each of its floors. Load screen, load screen, load screen, load screen. Some of the bosses? Load screen. Going from the main office to the Savekeeper. First a load screen to the region with him, and then a load screen to get to the actual save menu. Want to shop or use any of the associated game services? That's a load screen, the shop menu, and then another load screen when you exit. Want to change the equipment loadout? The same thing again.
I have never seen it this bad, either before or since this. I mean, okay, if your game disc is damaged like what happened when I tried to review Digimon World 1, twice mind you, your game can completely lock up, but that freezing is a contextual clue it's gone bad. Here, it's still giving you visual and audio indication it's still processing. It just takes that long, and adds massively to the tediousness of even playing the game. This was not a problem with World 2 or 3, both of which had far more elaborate explorable worlds, and were late-end titles on the console whose processing ability was being stretched to its limits, whereas this didn't even come close to stressing the capabilities of the PS2. It just coded that badly. I'm not feeling well.
Back to actually addressing the story, your Digimon is a new recruit to the DSG, which I assume to mean is an acronym for Digital Security Guard.
Helps when you explain what the acronym is!
And after, you are directed to talk to a Funimon with obviously badly localized dialogue. You are sent out to the Death Valley region of the Yamato server, a newly discovered region of the digital world.
This is a lie. Later dialogue contradicts their unawareness of this region.
In order to catch up with an expedition force that they've lost contact with. Yes, send the new recruits into a dangerous region to find professionals. That makes so much sense. Death Valley begins the game's endless grind, where you blindly explore regions, fight every Digimon that pops the fuck out of nowhere, in order to find the game's dungeons. You travel through a dungeon, fighting the Digimon that bar your path, until you reach each dungeon's boss, usually several times the strength of the other cannon fodder. If you have the MP skill that weakens Digimon, this, more than any other creature, is what you should use it on, as an application increases your damage dealing immensely. Some dungeons, however, you can discover out of order, the big boss regions locked out with special keys that are dropped by prior boss Digimon. Controls are pretty simple. Use X to attack, square to guard, circle to jump, triangle uses your most powerful healing item, the left bumper opens your items menu, with you being able to obtain 3 tiers of both healing and MP restoration discs, the cure disc which removes status ailments.
Buy as many of these as you can, by the way. For some reason, poison never goes away by using just one disc. It usually takes 2 or 3 to get rid of the affliction. It guts your HP very fast, and it does not go away on its own. Worse, you are limited to a maximum of 9 of these items, whereas if it's equipment, you get about 4 times the space, but none of it stacks.
The gate disc instantly ports you back to terminal, but lose all progression through a region unless you use that disc on these emblems found in the environments, which allows the system to transport you back. Lastly is recovery, which fully restores your health and MP. There are also 2 more items that are stuffed in with these recovery discs in a max of 9 limitation. They are booster packs.
No, this game does not have a card game system like World 3.
And secondly, the keychains, which can be traded to Prince Mamemon over in the southern region of Terminal, that holds all the merchant shops. He's right next to Metal Edamon. By trading him 9 of these keychains at a time, he will give you a pre-scripted item, and over the course of the game, you need to trade with him 11 times.
The keychain and Digimon cards are necessary prerequisites to unlock the game's side missions, which in turn will reward you with various things, rare versions of equipment, currency, or in the ones that open in the post-game and harder difficulties, the alternate Digimon.
But those won't happen until you clear the first 4 dungeons of the game, first by obtaining 2 keys from Blossommon in the Human Cave, which is located in the Goblin Pass subregion of Death Valley, and then the second from Mammothmon in the Cliff Dungeons in the Abyss of Grief, which is the region accessed on the far west side of Goblin Pass. Once you obtain these keys, you head to the eastern side of Goblin Pass, destroy the defenses, which included pairs of rapidly firing turrets.
I hate those things, by the way. The only way to avoid being damaged by the various turrets is to use guard, but the guard in this game is of the pinpoint nature, meaning you have to time exactly when to guard or it doesn't work, and holding the button down does nothing to continue guarding after that initial press. As I have always sucked at using any type of guard function in a video game, I always end up eating a lot of damage. Not helped by trying to rush the damn things to get in melee range is a frustrating endeavor because this game, when you take damage, results in a flinch animation that lasts just long enough for the next attack to hit and continue the cycle.
Meaning you either need to be very good at evasion or aiming off screen with the gun when you come across them, on top of the already horrible accuracy of the gun. Firing blind is not an easy endeavor. The other obstacle here is a bunch of Numemon that are launching themselves like ballistic bombs. This dungeon, the Goblin Fortress, has you fight waves and waves of Goblimon, so makes for an okay early grinding area, only with swarms that are not easy to manage at all, so are just as likely to kill you if you're not prepared in advance. Oh, and you end up needing to respawn the legions at least once to get the doors of the region to open to head upstairs and to the command room. Here, you face the first of this game's central enemies, the Mecha Rogues.
The Mecha Rogues are digital entities, born of the X program. Yeah, this game is a prequel to X Evolution. This is the first outbreak of the X program, the Yamato server being its incubation site, which would then spread to all the other regions, and this game does not even bother to address any of that. It ends in the purported triumph over these forces, when the true culling has not even begun.
Though the X antibody does make a few random appearances here, the Mecha Rogues drop an alternate currency known as X data, which can be used to improve your Digimon stats and certain equipment chips. They are on the opposite side of the save keeper, but only increases your stats by 1 point at a time, and costs increasingly ludicrous funds to improve. This is the only boss, by the way, that if you do the Nume boss rush, you do not need to redo, as he does not respawn at this location. His model, however, is later reused as Mecha Rogue 04. By beating him, you rescue Leomon, who has been experimented on and infected by the X program in its earliest stages, with that detail and most of his memory scrubbed completely. However, with Leomon rescued, he directs you to another region back in the Abyss of Grief, beyond a set of pillars you need to jump over to reach.
Did I mention the game does not tell you you can do that? If you miss a jump, however, it's not game over, but it does reduce you to 1 HP, and send you to a pre-designated spot nearby. There are a few leak-to-platform regions, most of which end up death traps, as the later ones are populated on both sides by enemy Digimon, which, if they hit you, the flinch animation will result in you falling to your death, reviving in their midst, and as you're down to 1 HP, you will die, and then be sent back to Terminal, with all the progress you made disappearing in a puff of frustration. Oh, and you also lose every single bit of currency you've gained.
To avoid the currency loss problem, the western sector of Terminal, to the left of the save keeper, is a banker where you can deposit bits and equipment. You need to do so pretty regularly. Anyways, after a repeat encounter with Blossommon, you reach a boat that will take you to the last dungeon of Death Valley.
And this is where you need to have trained the crap out of your shot skill to clear this section.
For all of the Digi-Elves from the expedition have been captured by the Numemon of this river, and it takes multiple consecutive shots to destroy each prison, while the boat you're on is actively moving and being attacked. As magic attacks have the issue of the aberrant homing system, any attempt at aiming is screwed over by everything else in your way to them, which is not only the Numemon, but defense towers which fire missiles at you, and a series of defenses that need to be taken out to not destroy the ship.
And you will be repeating this section a lot. The 10 Digi-Elves here are all the ones who provide the game's side quests, and you need to rescue all of them.
And those last 3 are especially tedious, as they are right on top of one another, and are not easy to aim at all.
Higher difficulties increase the number of times you need to hit the prisons as well, and you can only fire so fast.
Beyond that is the Doom Dome.
I gotta sing the Doom song now! Doom, 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 doom!
Where you get the first of the Mecha Rogue allied Digimon, which have corrupted the lesser ones. Apoclymon.
Yeah, you're facing the original anime's end boss. He is an absolute wimp.
Though he does have similar defense pylons that make him comparable to the original. These 5 towers are on his pedestal, which you need to break in order to break the defense grid that'll harm you otherwise. Oh, and avoid the attacks from his fin funnels and his sweeping assaults. With the Apocalypse dead, the X program assaults the terminal, somehow, necessitating we go and activate a series of defense panels Ophanimon is prepared in the event of such emergency.
And said emergency defense is to unseal Seraphimon from a locked-off section of the terminal, who then supersedes her as the main individual you report to, and effectively becomes his secretary. That's not a secret defense if you're just calling in your fucking boss.
The attack came from the Dryland region, which is of course a desert. All of the dungeons here inflicting... I have absolutely no idea what this status affliction is.
Because I never found out what it affected. My attacks weren't weaker, I didn't move slower, my defense was not compromised, it didn't hinder or increase the cost of magic casting, it didn't seem to do anything.
However, these dungeons are where you will spend the longest amount of your playtime. Not because they are any more difficult to navigate than any of the other dungeons.
Especially since you do not automatically get a map of the dungeons. You have to find the map in it, and if you turn off the console, then you lose that map.
But because of the endless supply of Mummymon in them. See, the Mummymon spawning in the dungeons, alongside a more fragile version for the Mecha Rogues outside, is tied to these Dark Tower obelisks. As long as they remain intact, you can kill them, and only a set number will spawn at a time. Meaning if you have the right mods in your character, you can kill 4 Digimon in about 10 to 20 seconds, and net a little under 1,000 experience points around on normal, and up to nearly 4,000 on very hard. The best dungeon for it is the Sand Labyrinth, as near the end of the dungeon, there's one of these obelisks close to a heal circle, meaning you could save your items.
This is where, on this modern playthrough, I spent about 10 to 20 hours? I forget the specifics. However, no matter what, do not use fire attacks, either by magic or weapon mod, on the Mummymon. It sets them on fire, and not in a way that inflicts damage to them, but instead causes it to you. However, if you have ice elements attacks, the fire can then be put out.
Though these dungeons are also annoying due to their infestation of Minotaurumon, who after you knock them down once, go to get jet-jacked on Vaseroids and then become vastly more powerful.
The Intercontinental Belt back! Take it back the parts unknown! Load the spaceship with the rocket fuel! Load it with the worst!
After killing Skull Greymon in the Sand Labyrinth, swing straight south around the region to get to the Grief Wasteland, which has the Ancient Ruins dungeon, where you do much the same, only with the addition of Pharamon, who likes to teleport and strike with magic attacks, and with a giant Scorpiomon.
However, this is where you're likely to get completely lost. Again.
See, due to the camera angles and a lack of map, you're not likely to notice there's a region you can move through past the entrance of the Ancient Ruins dungeon, which leads to Station X. Right inside is one of the more egregious uses of both the hidden walls and the gun turrets. The former needed to reveal a switch that creates a bridge which allows you to snipe the gun turrets just barely out of their range, but not all of them.
Then the actual difficult part of this comes into play. See, to actually reach the station, you need to shut down the power grid that's keeping the electric floor online.
If you don't, stepping on it kills you, while you're trying to fight off the enemies that spawn on it. Shutting it down requires you flip switches that are littered all across the region in order to activate the Storm Train, which is on the far opposite side of the region, in a place that if you went there before, seems to serve no actual meaning.
And in fact, you can easily confuse it for another region right next to it, which is actually a far more logical location.
This region being the Grief Wasteland, where you also need to flip switches to access, that serves as a battle zone guarding what looks like a raised bridge. This bridge never lowers at all to my knowledge, so is a complete waste of time and programming. The Storm Train isn't exactly a picnic either, needing to actively direct the train down the correct path to the power station. If you don't, it'll turn around and head straight back to where you boarded it. The correct direction for it to head is forward, 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 right, and then left. Then you need to hit the stoplights so they won't stop the train, while avoiding electric banisters and Mecha Rogue assaults. Shining them on the power station just involves breaking up a bunch of light bulbs, which complete the circuits in parallel. Station X, once you get back, then requires you to break all of these transmission towers before the dungeon, Virus Lab, will open.
And the Virus Lab is annoying to navigate, though it's only a precursor to how bad it gets.
And that the place is all locked up and requires you to find specific buttons to open the doors to other sections, which leads to the next floor. Thus, it's doable, but becomes time-consuming as you need to walk around each floor a few times, and will regularly run into and need to run into dead ends.
Worse, the second involves the pit jumping I mentioned earlier, but at the end of it is Malomyotismon.
Yes, you then get to fight Adventure 02's end boss.
And no, there's no real end boss representative from Tamers, though there is a Dioboromon you get to fight later.
With the X-Program assault on Terminal receding, that just leaves finding the source of the infection.
Which, we know is coming from Yggdrasil. Whoops.
But before we get to that, now is a good time to begin to address all of the side quests.
Mainly because this is the point in the game where you can do any of them. That at least doesn't require you have to beat the end boss, on the condition you have met its prerequisites.
First is the Barbarian Cave, also having the secondary unlock condition of being levels 16, 46, or 76, depending on difficulty. Your challenge is to get to the end of the dungeon, and then defeat the Mammothmon boss at exactly the 10-minute mark. You cannot go over 10 minutes, and doing it at 9:59 or less results in the second best prize possible, if not worse.
It's all there, black and white, clear as crystal. You get nothing. You lose! Good day, sir!
Fortunately, it's not one of the ones that rewards you with an alternate Digimon.
Next is the Undead Yard, whose secondary unlock condition is having more than 2, 5, or 8 alternate Digimon.
Meaning it will not unlock until the post-game the first time.
But on normal and hard difficulties, it's one that rewards you with one. It requires you to kill either 279 or 302 enemies within the span of 10 minutes. This is made difficult, as some parts of it are keyed to backtracking, and also hidden rooms in the dungeon that can throw off your score and accounting. The Shield Shrine is one that opens after defeating Malomyotismon, and necessitates you place an item at a shrine at the end, and then get out before the countdown timer that pops up hits the 10-minute mark. Problem is, the dungeon suffers from a lot of dead ends, making learning the dungeon layout essential. Captive Digimon necessitates you having 25, 35, or 45 of the game's cards from the booster pack pulls,
which in and of itself is a tedious exercise, as the card drops are random. Recommendation on that? Save before opening each pack. That way, if one results in something you don't have, you won't lose it in a necessitated speed-up reset. This is essential for the rarer cards, and like everything else in this game, it is ridiculously time-consuming.
But the Captive Dungeon is the other most difficult dungeon to deal with, as it requires you to beat it by not taking any damage, or surviving it with only 1 hit point left. Cause both are pretty much the same at the end of the day. Can't get hit, or need to finagle some way to survive not going over that last hit point. And this dungeon is absolutely stuffed with traps, whose only intent is to blindside you and get you to lose all of your health. All healing items are also disabled in the dungeon, so there's no way to recover health at all in it. Thus, there's no way to fake that score of a damageless run.
Unless, that is, you discovered the cheat. See, it only recognizes your health score after you beat the dungeon. Why is that detail important? Because you still gain experience points from the Digimon you fight in the dungeon.
Meaning that if you properly manage when your next level up happens, you can literally break the game's own imposed restrictions by leveling up off the end boss Scorpiomon, which resets your health back to full, and be rewarded with new Digimon on both harder difficulties. Like a boss.
Screw the rules! I have long hair.
Not very much longer.
Shut it! I'm awesome. 'Cause I did my research. No one has talked about this workaround for this quest. As far as I know, I'm the one that discovered it. 11 years after it would have been relevant to discover. Shit.
And there it is. The realization that everything you achieve is worthless.
Wait, what? God, it's almost pitch black. How's that even... Oh.
Oh yes, that's the other backup plan. Even if you try to wait it out and risk damage to yourself from being digitized, you can't do whatever you do to vent that little source of devastation you've obtained.
I take a day and play something I genuinely enjoy. I haven't been able to do that in a long time. I've been too busy. Much of them really aren't even playable anymore. You did that to my Doc Cactus, didn't you?
Yes, and with all that negativity, it looks ready to go off. It does. I've calculated that it will take my prison along with it. Or you kill me, and my purgatory ends.
Uh-huh. And how does that end in you getting out without coming to that, huh?
It's quite simple. Finish what you started.